Okay. Good morning again to the Indian viewers and good evening to the US viewers. Welcome to the webinar on Entrepreneurship Talk. I am Dr. Project Manager, IISER Bhopal. As most of you might be aware that IISE, Innovation and Incubation Centre for Entrepreneurship, has restarted its famous Entrepreneurship Talk series, where we invite entrepreneurs from India and abroad to create awareness and promote the startup culture. There are YouTube videos of our previous talks and you can watch it on ICE YouTube channel. ICE provides space, awareness, R&D facility, networking, and mentorship for the success of startups. So without further delay, I would like to introduce Dr. Amjad Hussain, CEO ICE, to further brief us about the speaker. Dr. Amjad Hussain.
Thank you, Udeep, and welcome Dr. Iman Daryaei for today's talk. As Udeep mentioned, that we at ICE are trying to build a startup innovation ecosystem at the institute as well as in the vicinity nearby. And that is the whole idea, to arrange these talks to sensitize and also create awareness about the entrepreneurship among students as well as researchers and faculty members at the institute. Today's talk is a bit special because India is also celebrating its 1 year of National Education Policy 2020, which was launched last year. And there are lots of reforms and also a very much focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. So your talk is also special because that is also addressing skills and entrepreneurship required if a student or a faculty researcher start a company. So I formally welcome Dr. Iman Daryaei today. And before he deliver his talk, I would like to introduce him. Dr. Iman Daryaei is a CEO and co-founder of TheraCea Pharma, which is in Arizona, United States. He started his company in 2019, and the company is commercializing a new rapid simplified method for producing radio labeling compounds used for PET scan. His research has been featured in multiple platforms, and also he has secured 7 patents and published very high impact research papers during his PhD. He obtained his PhD from University of Arizona at Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry in 2017. After completing his master's degree from Southern Illinois University in United States. He also was an intern at Sanofi in Arizona and also received a number of grants and awards during his academic career, including NSF One Corps Award, iCorps NSF Grant, iCorps NSF Grant, another grant, and also SIUE Thomas D. Bowman Memorial Research Scholar Award. He's an accomplished academician as well as entrepreneur, and I'm sure his journey to start a company has been challenging as well as exciting. And today he's going to share his views and thoughts and also his experiences on starting up his own company after his PhD. Iman, I formally welcome you to deliver a talk. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I am really pleased to join you tonight, for me, and today for you guys. And good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure to have this presentation today. So let me share my screen with you and start with what I'm doing. So as I already mentioned, my name is Iman Daryaei, and I'm CEO and co-founder of TheraCea Pharma, a biotechnology company with focus on developing new diagnostic agents for early detection of cancer. So what I'm doing in my company is very related to the research that I was doing during my PhD. And during my PhD here at the University of Arizona, I had the opportunity to pursue a minor degree in entrepreneurship. So that was the initial point where I got to know what entrepreneurial activity was. And I always had passion to have a company for myself. Obviously, I didn't realize the challenges that would be there. I was more motivated to do something that I wanted to do. And after graduation, it took a while, especially, when you move to the United States, you need to work on a lot of stuff, including your immigration visa, in order to establish a company for yourself. As a foreigner, it's not easy to have a company. By law, there are some issues that you cannot manage a company, but as soon as your immigration status is resolved, then you can do entrepreneurial activity in form of having a company. So that was the same case for me. It took a while, about almost 3 years after my graduation, until I could establish my own company. And today, what I'm going to discuss or share with you is, it seems, it might seem very basic in terms of the concept for entrepreneurial activities. And I have learned those things, when I was a student in an entrepreneurship program. However, now that I am running my own business for over 15 months, I realized how important those concepts are. So I tried to put all of those basics together as a roadmap for the key activities that every and any entrepreneur needs to keep in mind. And again, some of them seems pretty basic, but when you start the business, you realize how important they are. So today, what I'm going to do is I will start with a brief introduction of all of the reasons for failure of different startup companies. Then I will discuss the idea and technology behind the company, formation of a team, how to pursue financials and investment, official formation of a company, some of the requirements for business activities such as executive summary and business plan and their importance in forming the future of the company, attention to exit strategy and risk associated in general with this type of activities, and a little conclusions about all of the topics that I'm going to discuss tonight. So there has been a lot of research on the main reasons for the failure of different types of businesses, especially startup companies. And no matter which research you deal with and what company or what university has worked on this to find the main reasons, almost all the top 10 reasons are pretty much the same. Again, no matter what factor you consider, what type of startup you consider, they all have something in common. The main and biggest reason why a startup company fails, is because they do not have the market for their product. So they're working on a business product, on a business service, or on a product that there is no customer for. The second main reason that causes for startup companies to fail is because they run out of cash. So they do not have money. They may have a lot of lending or credit out there, but they do not have cash money in hand to continue. And the third most important reason is, for many companies, there is no team, or there is no right team to advance a technology or a service or a product to make it into the market. So by the way, I should mention, whenever I use the term company in my talk tonight, I'm referring to a startup company. So even if I do not differentiate, please consider that and I'm referring to means a startup company. So after all of these reasons, there are other reasons, but since they are not as important as these three top reasons, I'm going to have my talk more focused on these three main reasons. So one of the biggest mistakes that you can hear from a lot of entrepreneurs is the fact that they all think an idea means an opportunity in the business, which is not correct. So for you guys, when you are in an academic setup, you see a lot of professors, you see a lot of researchers who are doing continuous research nonstop, 24/7. And you look at all the publications in different fields, in politics, in literature, in chemistry, in physics. Look at all of the journals. You see every day, every hour, a lot of publications that are coming out, and they all are based on new ideas. And can you call all of those ideas a business opportunity? For sure, no, because out of thousands that are ideas that are out there, a few of them can lead into a situation where you can make money out of that idea. So I want you to pay attention to this and make sure the idea that you are working on is not equal to a business opportunity. To make sure that there is a market for an idea or there is a business opportunity for an idea, the best practice is to test your idea to see whether there is a need in the market for that. A lot of entrepreneurial courses or trainings here in the US is focused on how to sharpen an idea to make sure the idea can be converted into a product or into a service that eventually can make money. Because, do not forget that the eventual goal of having any business is to make money. So when you are talking about an idea, you should keep in mind that that idea needs to become into money. And so one common practice for that is to make hypotheses about the idea and then go and talk to potential customers, to the people that you think would be the users of that idea, and keep asking those people to see whether the idea that you have can become a service or product for those people or not. And through different rounds of evaluation, you can get into a point where you are confident that an idea is really a business opportunity, so a company can form around it. Or, simply you just realize that, it's a cool thing, but it's not necessarily something that other people needed. So whenever you reach to a point where you figure out that an idea cannot have any future in terms of becoming a business, you better pivot that idea to make it into something that, again, can become a business. So this is the key. A lot of people, especially people with advanced degree, they do not realize that not all of the ideas can become a market product. So as soon as you have an idea, it is very, very important to protect that idea. And again, when I say the idea, I mean about those that can become a business opportunity, those that can become a product or in the market or service that other people would like to use. So for those ideas, you need to work on it to make sure it is protected. Why is that? Because there are people out there that are already competing. When someone has an idea, it doesn't mean that person is the only one with the same idea. About for the same research, you can find thousands, hundreds of people are working on the same concept from different angles. For ideas in business, it can be the same thing. When you look at, for instance, at Facebook is not or was not the only company working on social media. There was a lot of more, like Yahoo 360, it was Orkut, many other platforms that were out there. But Facebook had some strategies to make itself a better idea. So considering all of the competitions and all of the ideas that are out there, you need to make sure that you are protecting your ideas so other people cannot copy that easily by seeing what you are doing. There are obviously several ways, depending on type of idea. There are ways, to protect them. When an idea is an innovation, is a new method, for instance, or a device or a technology, the most common practice is having a patent around that idea. For some of the ideas, for instance, in literature, you cannot patent them because of the way that law defines what is patentable and what is not. So then another way of protection is having copyright. Again, for literature type of ideas, copyright is the best one. So you may be in a situation where you cannot, patent your idea, or there is no way to have a copyright about an idea. And trade secret is one of the best one, to protect then the idea. And one of the best examples about trade secret, for companies is the formula that is used for soda, for Coca-Cola, for instance, or Pepsi. They are not running their business based on patents or copyright. Their main feature protecting the idea is trade secret, the way that they are doing this business. There are also some other ways, such as trademarks. The names, the legal entities that you have for developing an idea can be protected through trademark. And eventually, there is another rule, especially in the US, that is called trade dress unfair competition law. This is not as famous as the other four, but whenever you have a product that has, very specific packaging, so when people see those packaging, it resembles a brand in their mind, that thing can be protected against copying by other people. So again, no matter what type of idea you have, you always need to figure out what is the best way to protect that idea. So now you have an idea and you know that you want to work around that idea. And, it is not really easy to work on something alone. It's always better if you form a team. The main reason is different people bring different skills. When you are working on an idea, there are requirements for different expertise to expand that idea. And that's the reason founders usually require to find other people to partner with. Sole founders is not usually a great idea, and it's better you form a team of 2-3 founders so that you all work together to make the idea developed and make it a product. And when we talk about the team, we are not just talking about the founders. Founders are the pioneers. They form the initial team. But as soon as they become a little larger or they start doing business activities, there are roles that are needed in order to determine specific activities for even founders of a company. And that's when management teams come in. So you always hear about chief executive officer, chief operation officer, chief business officer, all of those C titles, CEO, COO, CBO. So when founders of a company form an official team, for the inside of the company, those titles are not important at all. But for external use, when you're working with other people, with other companies, it is always important to have a title. So people from outside know for what issue to deal with who inside the company. So that's why we have all of this title for the people. And it is very common, especially for technical ideas, for instance, in chemistry or physics, when people come with technical background, they usually are not good in business or in management. And many times they require to bring people from outside to have a good fit for some of the management roles that they have in the company. So it is a common practice that founders just add other team members with executive roles inside the company to make them CEO, for instance, or to make them CFO or chief financial officer. So beside these two teams, there is another very, very, very important team, support team for all of the founders and even the management team in a startup company. And that's the mentor and advisory team. So as a founder, as an entrepreneur, you know what you are doing. So you're usually very focused in the area of your expertise and what you're developing. But having a successful company requires more than just expertise in what you are doing. You need to have, for instance, a very large network. You need to have vision about what you are doing. You need to scale up the company. For all of these activities, you need to have people who have experience, who have done this in the past or know other people how to do it. And that's why you need to have mentors. Having mentor around you is always a benefit. And initially, when company is in earlier stages, you do not need to have an advisory board. Let me just, very briefly differentiate the difference or highlight the difference between mentors and advisory team. Mentors are usually a group of people who come and help you without expectation for any return, on what they are providing to you or contributing to your companies. They love to do that because they enjoy doing that. Advisory team, their main role is to govern the company's activity, and they are compensated for what they are doing. So in earlier stages, you are totally fine to work with mentors. But as soon as the company gets larger, you need to have an advisory board, for your company. Usually the advisory board is the path for you into getting to know by other businesses, getting to know by customers, and being ready to do business with other people. They are great connection for the company. So do not forget the importance of advisory board. They can be a little, headache, because you are giving them, compensating them for what they are doing, but at the same time, you benefit a lot from them. I remember I was in a talk with one of the very, very famous professor from Harvard University, who actually invented artificial leaf. And he was talking about his entrepreneurial activities, and he was saying, they developed this, artificial leaf, but for a while they didn't have any customer because they didn't know what would be the best business to sell this idea to. And, they started working with other companies, but, there was no good offer for them. They decided to change their advisory team or advisory board, and they brought people with like 20, 25 years of experience in Volkswagen or other companies. As soon as they brought them in, they were able to sell their company for $20 million or something like that. So that really highlighted the power and importance of advisory board for a startup company. Success needs those type of people around you. As an entrepreneur, do not to surround yourself with people who knows how a specific business is running. And so now we know the idea, we want to form a company around that idea, we have the team, and everything is okay to run the business. The biggest challenge now is financials, is money. You know that you cannot do anything if you do not have money. And it is critical for founders to figure out what is the cost of their business, and not only how much cost of a business is for today, how much the business would cost a day from today, 2 days after this, 6 months after today. It is necessary for founders to have a prediction of the changes in the cost that they are dealing in their company. And they need to find ways to bring money to cover those costs for the company. The slide that I have here might be a little specific to what we have in the US ecosystem, startup ecosystem, but I'm confident that there are equivalent type of funding or financial opportunity in India. So in the US government is putting a huge amount of investment as help to startup companies through a small business funding that is called SBIR or STTR. These are non-refundable money that the government gives to a startup company. It's not just, you go and say, okay, give me the money, and they give you the money. There is a process. Founders apply for this type of funding. They usually write grants. And if their idea seems pleasing, they have the right team and right place, the government gives them that money. Competition is another place where founders can provide some of the financial money for some of their financial need. Getting loans from the bank, using personal investment, and using money from friends and family are other common ways that founders use money in the beginning or in the early days of developing their venture. And then for almost all of these resources that I have introduced so far, there is no expectation for ownership in the company. Usually friends or family, they lend you their money because their friend or their family, it's your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, or when you get a loan, you have debt to a bank, but they do not usually claim ownership of the company. The same thing with competition and SBR grant. There are other sorts of financial support for the company in return for ownership in a company. In a smaller scale, it is angel investors or individuals who have money and are interested to lend their money to companies that might have a bright future. And in larger scale, for more money, there are groups or firms where they put all the monies together and become a venture that invest in smaller companies. And for both angel investors and venture capital groups, the criteria here is that they do not give their money for free. They want ownership in the company, so they will have active role in making decisions on what the company can do or cannot do. So before, getting involved or in those type of transactions, you need to make sure what is the demand for the money that you are getting for your company and whether it's worth doing that or not. And it is in the beginning, no matter, you will find a way to have, some money to support some of the activities in the company. And usually, personal funding or family and friends, you find some sort of money to support your activity. For many companies that are ran out of cash is right after they start their business, they get into a situation where they cannot cover operation and other costs in their company. I think you all are familiar with the term of value of this. That's the moment after the initial funding in the company is used, the company still need to spend more money for more development plans or different activities regarding operation, payroll, other things that requires money, but they ran out of cash. So it is critical for founders. That's the reason I say that founders need to know how much cash they need for the next 6 to 8 months. So you always need to have cash money in your bank account for 6 to 8 months from the day when you get that money. And that helps you to put if you get into an unfavorable situation like value of this, by having cash money, you can pass that and make cash flow positive in the company. So with all of this, with the team, idea, and money in hand, now you can officially work as a company. So the key here is that many people, especially when friends form partnership, to do entrepreneurial activity, to have a startup, do not realize the importance of legal activities here. When you get into business, business is business. So friendship can be destroyed. Having relative can be a problem when you start doing business with other people. So good relationship can, turn into bad relationship because of the business. So because of all of these reasons, it is very important that you structure your company in the right way. First of all, you need to have the right legal entity for your activities, to form that officially and legally, to find the right name for that, to have all the legal documents that are required. One of the important documents, in my opinion, for any company that has more than 2 founders is operating agreement that explains how each person is putting time and contributing time and money in the company, and what are the expectations for all of the people in the company. There needs to be licenses and approval in local level, in like a state level or province level, in country level. You need to make sure you have all of the licenses that are required for you to run your business. And accounting and working with numbers is another important area that many founders underestimate. They say, okay, in the beginning, we can take care of it. When we get larger, we'll find an accountant. Usually working with numbers is not as easy as you imagine. A lot of times, because of the taxation or the way the government, is sensitive about numbers, things can get lost and ugly very, very easily. Because of that reason, I highly recommend any founder to start working with an accountant from early days, just to keep track of all of the numbers, all of the costs, all of the incomes, everything, that is going on in terms of number in a company. And in addition to that, I would say working with a business lawyer will be very, very beneficial. The way that law is written is always very, very complicated. And as a founder, you want to focus on your area of expertise, on developing your product or your idea or the service that you want to have as business provider. And you don't want to get into learning, what any terminology in law means. Because of that reason, it's better, you leave this type of activity to the people who has the expertise, and those are attorneys or business lawyers. So make sure you find the right business lawyer. In the beginning, you do not need to have a business lawyer for your company. Just to get consultant from those people in early stages would be more than enough for you to realize what you are doing and what you need to do in future. And I mentioned that you need to have a legal entity, you need to form a company. At least here in the US, there are several different types of entities that you can have. You can have a limited liability company or LLC company. You can have a partnership, or you can have S corporation, a structure for a company. All of these different types of companies have different benefits, advantages, and disadvantages. When you are in a smaller scale and you do not deal with that many of customers or investors in the company, LLC would be a better place to start with because of the simplicity of all of the accounting and the way that the operation can be done. But when you have investors, for instance, it is, I think, a must by those investors to have a score, because they cannot put their money in an LLC company where the tracking of the money wouldn't be as easy as an S corporation. So now that the company has formed and you have the money, the team is there, the idea is there, you need to have a roadmap for all of the activities. You should have milestones for different activities. For any type of business, no matter what it is, there are milestones. You need to figure out what are the key milestones for the success of your business and when you want to achieve those milestones. Having this roadmap not only help you to find investors, it gives you a better way of explaining what your business is and what you're achieving to do. It helps yourself as well. A lot of time, we as founders get lost in our day-to-day activities, and but it's very possible that we miss the larger picture for what we wanted to do, especially if there are a lot of pivots in the activities for the company. So having this roadmap and milestones and the timing for achieving those milestones will help a lot to stay focused on the main or core activities of the companies. And finally, the most important component of any business activity is when people can make money out of that. For a lot of startup company, this is when they are exiting the market, meaning that is the time that these companies will make money. So as a founder, it's not really easy to figure out, what would be the exit strategy for a company. But the good thing is that depending on the type of the business you are working on, type of the technology and idea, there are examples out there. You can see what other companies has done in the past, and you can use them as a role model for yourself to at least have an idea of what you want to do. Not having an exit strategy is a very big mistake, especially if you're trying to bring investors. They want to know when is the end and when they can get their money. So even if an exit is not something that you really enjoy, you need to have it part of your plan to show other people that you have thought about the future and ending point for your company. And I have an example of exit for or percentage of exits for different startup companies in tech startups. In the beginning, for the tech companies, 17% of them go into exit. Means that they form a company, they have the idea, and they just immediately sell the idea to another group because the idea is appealing enough for other teams. And 27% of all of the companies from initial point will go to seed round. It's like the round they get their initial investment in their company. Among all of those companies, 14% will go into exit strategy. So the remaining either fail or they go to next step, which is Series A of fundraising activity. After this stage, 16% of those companies go into exit, 18% fails, and 66% goes to Series B of fundraising activity, and eventually 39, about 40% of those companies with Series B fundraising activity will go to a successful exit. As you can see here, initially the number of failure is very, very significant. Percentage of failure is significant, and percentage of exit is very low. As you get more investment in your company, the rate for failure decreases significantly, and exit becomes a more and more viable way of making money for the company. There are different ways for, depending on the business, different ways for exit strategy. Exit can be a merger or acquisition, the company be acquired by another company, or the company can go public, or IPO, just sell the stock to public, or they can, bankrupt. Bankrupt is an exit technically, but it's exit that no one make money. Or the business can be sold to the managers and employees. Initially, founders and management team are the people working in the company, but as the company grows, other people are coming to work in the company as employees or new manager for the company. So sometimes the original founders prefer just to sell the company to those managers and employees. And sometimes liquidation or just selling everything and cashing out would be an option for some of the businesses where there is no better way. So with all of this that I already mentioned, one thing that every single entrepreneur needs to keep in mind is the risk associated with every step that we have discussed. And many people originally would like to be an entrepreneur because they think about money and they feel like this is the way that they can make a lot of money. I remember when I initially started to participate in the entrepreneurship program as a minor degree for my PhD, mentors for the program were asking questions. The first question was, how many of you are here because you want to become rich? So about 67% of us, just went together, stayed in one group. And then they asked, who is passionate, about doing a business. So some people went and formed another group, like 10%. Another was how many of people wanted just to be their own boss. So some group, they went and formed another 10-15%. So at the end, they were laughing on all of us who decided to become an entrepreneur because we wanted to be rich. On that day, it was not really easy for me to figure out why, we cannot get rich. And now that I'm working in my own business, I understand why people shouldn't consider to be rich when they start to be entrepreneur. Eventually, an entrepreneur, if they do not bankrupt or if they do not fail, they become rich. There is no question on that. But this timing can be long. And so companies either have money or they do not have money. If they do not have money, obviously they bankrupt and there is no money for the founders to make money. If there is money, as a founder of the company, you always want to give that money for the activities that you have in the company. You do not want to take out that money because you want to pay yourself more. You always want to keep that for the activities related to the value of the company, to increase the value of the company. So because of this simple reason, you do not become rich quickly by getting into an entrepreneurial activity. You keep that in mind. So, and you need to think about all of the risk and try either to avoid those risks, reduce them, transfer the risk, or accept the risk. That's the key. If you do not realize the associated risk, there is a good chance of failure. So with that, I would like to thank you, and I'm willing to take any question.
Thanks, Dr. Iman. It was excellent talk. Actually, it was very inspiring, and you enlightened us about the technicalities. It was awesome. So let me have some of the student questions. Students can also put their questions in the chat, but there are some questions which students have. Let me start with a question. So one of the students has asked that how a pharma sector can be profitable from R&D development.
Sure. So when we talk about pharmaceutical, is mainly drug, that are produced for the better health of human usually. And so one of the common practices, at least in the US right now, is that many larger companies such as Pfizer, Novartis, Johnson & Johnson, and other big pharmaceutical companies that they are not really interested to have R&D arm in their company. R&D costs a lot of money, and a lot of times with what they are doing, they are not making any money. So they are actively looking for startup companies that are successful in certain area of pharmaceutical that is appealing to those larger companies. So when you're working on R&D activities, obviously, there are different stages. You start with chemistry, then you do animal studies. When that is done, you are ready for human studies. There are regulatory approval. So a lot of larger companies in the past, they wanted to have clinical data on human first in order to start any talk with startup companies. But these days, this landscape has changed because R&D work kind of has stopped in larger pharmaceutical companies. So they are looking for early stage R&D companies in pharmaceutical with good patents, with good IP, and good progress, at least in their in vivo work. So technically, what's happening is that you develop an idea in R&D phase, and then you sell it to larger pharmaceutical company, either in form of license or being acquired, is two common practices.
Nice. So it tells that how important is it to have to look into these startups, the new startups.
Yeah.
So another student is asking that I am in my second year, probably I think he's in bachelor's BS second year. So his question is how to implement our theoretical knowledge and ideas to real world applications so that the world and myself get betterment of livelihood and make life easier.
Yeah, that's a little tricky question, especially for someone who is working on a bachelor degree, because, obviously, as you go to more or later years of college, especially when you get into graduate degree, you have a better understanding on application. But a general answer for your question would be, so you need to focus your technical expertise on particular idea or particular technology, and see what is the application for that particular idea or particular technology. If you are just talking about the skills that you are learning, those skills are needed as an employee. If you want to become an entrepreneur, you need to know how you can use those skills to make particular product first, and second, whether those products are needed by the market or not. So people who are coming from industry usually have a better chance of becoming a more successful entrepreneur. The reason is by staying in industry, you see all of the processes that are happening in industry. So you have a good idea on what is needed or what is not needed. And then when you come to college, you work on what is needed, and then you can introduce that as a new product to the market. So just being in the college is a little challenging, but again, if you focus on a single product, a single activity, there's a better chance. And there's always good to know people in industry, to talk to them, to see what they need and see what you can use in terms of your skills to do something that is needed in industry. So you need to know what's going on in order to focus your activities toward that.
Great. So what it means is that if there is an entrepreneur culture, there is an environment around you, you can definitely get success to be for your startup or to be a great entrepreneur.
Correct.
With that, there is another student. Somebody has asked that since you talked about importance of good organization, how to behave with people with negative stakeholders, how to deal with them.
How to behave with what? I got a little disconnected there.
I'm sorry. So how to behave with people with negative stakeholders. So if you have somebody in organization who is not very enthusiastic, or who is also creating some negative environment. So how will you behave with that person?
That's a great question. So in the beginning, as I mentioned, founders form team together in order to develop an idea. So you don't want to partner with someone who do not believe in an idea. So entrepreneurs do not have anything in hand. They are not working for money. When you work for a company, you make money. So even, in your bad days, you get your paycheck. When you work for yourself, you do not get a paycheck. So a lot of time in the initial point, you are not making any money from your own company. So it is the hope, it is the passion and motivation who moves people forward. So you do not want to work with other people who are not helping you with their attitude. I would say, people, in larger organization, you may have colleagues with negative attitude or people who are kind of pessimistic. That's not something you can deal with. There is larger structure, there is human resources, there are different teams. You take care of that, or you handle that situation with a different scenario from when you are in a startup company. In a startup company, all the people are working together toward a goal with positive attitude. I don't believe if someone who has a negative attitude can work in a startup company, because there is nothing in a startup company for people to compensate for what they are doing. So if they are not bringing their positivity, their passion, their motivation, there is nothing for them to stay. So I would say, even if you have to try to avoid those type of people around yourself, especially in early stages of development. Later on, when you are hiring people, you may hire someone with a specific particular skills for your company, and then people are bringing a skill but different attitude is fine. But in the startup structure, I highly recommend avoiding those type of attitudes. Do not form a partnership with those, because that will collapse sooner or later.
Right. So that's a great answer. And I think one of the last questions is one of the students want to know, basically, maybe from your experience, some of the misconceptions people have about business. So if you want to give a little bit more detail or update on some of the misconceptions based on what you think on your when you are doing a business.
Yes, some of the misconceptions, the biggest one is to get rich. When you are doing business, obviously you need to consider that for a while you will be poor, because again, for all of the reasons that I mentioned, if there is resources, financial resources, you want to use it for your company to increase the value of the company. Another one is this could be. I'm originally from Iran, so the reason why I mentioned that is, for a lot of people in Middle East, for instance, there is this attitude of being a boss, and you always want to do that because you feel like as a boss you have more freedom and more time to do what you want to do. You can command people. And that's exactly against what is happening in a startup company. If you want to be a boss just to use the benefit of a boss, that's, a startup company is not the right place. Because in a startup company, you as a founder, you need to be role model. You work harder than anyone else. You put more time, you put more energy, you contribute more because you want to increase the value of the company. And you bring other people into your company that may not try to achieve the goals that you have set for the company, but you cannot command those people and you cannot behave like a boss. You need to work with those people to make sure they all are on the same page. They are in the same boat with you, trying to find a way for success of the company. Another misconception about the business is that many times we feel, a lot of co-founders feels like if their product is a good product, then customers will line up for their product, so they do not need to do a lot of other activities besides just developing the product, which is completely incorrect. As co-founders, you are obligated to work on the development of the idea on the technical side. At the same time, you need to learn the skills about management. You need to learn the skills about marketing. You should be good in introducing what you are doing. You'd never make the assumption that other people by default will know the value of what you're doing, and because of that, they are becoming your customer. You should always be ready to explain to others what you are doing in the most simple way, like, they said in a first grade explanation for what you are doing. So these are some of the misconceptions that comes to my mind. And another one would be, you should be always ready for pivot. You shouldn't think that you are 100% correct. If you feel in the middle of the activity that if you change some of the goals for what you are doing, some of the features of a product that you are developing, there's a better chance of success than being just stubborn on doing something that may not lead you to success. And I see some of the questions here in the chat. Should I go through them? Okay. So how can we good at networking? Networking, for me, it was one of the challenges here in the US, especially I was coming from different culture to here. So it took me a little time, to adopt to this culture here. But I think the best way is you just put yourself in the situation. You just go to the crowd, to the networking events that are happening over and over, different places, online platforms or in person. In the beginning, you feel it a little difficult, but over time, you just, feel more comfortable. So in the beginning, you do not have questions or you do not have way of communicating to other people. But when you attend 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, then you feel very, very comfortable and you learn, what questions to ask. One of the key in networking is asking questions, because you want to start a conversation, and to start a conversation, you need to have a starting point. So you need to work on the starting point, on the type of the question that you can ask. And most important thing is, you shouldn't be shy. You should feel confident and go and talk to people. That's the way networking happens. A lot of time you just start talking to people without having any real purpose. And then later you figure out that you both are in the same business, for instance. That creates an opportunity for you. And another question is, for an academic people like us, do having a business degree really help? Or anyone who is really looking, entrepreneur strategists should at least have a degree in business management studies. From some people's perspective, business management courses should help in having a startup. What is your point of view in this segment of having any type of business study? For me, I do not have any background in business studies. So my only related activity is the degree, minor degree, 1-year degree that I had in entrepreneurship. And in my opinion, is not the key to have a business degree. You always can hire people who have business degree or have business expertise. You can hire, have mentors or advisors who can help you on business aspects. And it is very common for academic people to form a startup company and later they look for a CEO for their company, just to bring someone who has expertise in business. So because of all of those reasons, I wouldn't say it is a must. However, if you have a business degree, it's an advantage. Not having a business degree is not a disadvantage, but having it is an advantage. And degrees such as MBA are very important in the sense that they open some of the doors that is not possible to open if you do not have that degree. For instance, when you are doing an MBA program, you are in a class full of executives. Your classmates are people from different industries that can be a great network for you later, that can accelerate the progress in your company or development phase in your company. So an degree like MBA could be really a catalyst, for the progress that you can make in your business. But again, in my opinion, it's not a must. If you have it, it's better. But if you don't have it, you do not lose anything. Over time, we can gain all of those expertise.
So I guess that's all students' question we had. And thanks a lot once again, Dr. Iman.
One more question. If it was just came as a direct message, should I go through that?
Sure.
Yeah. So one of the students asked, who can be the advisor for business? Advisors usually, when you form a panel of advisory board or a panel of advisors for your company, people with diverse background needs to be in that group. I would like to use the example from my company. In my company, I'm working in medical imaging. It's in healthcare. So I have people who have expertise in regulatory. I have people with expertise in business development and finance. I have people with expertise in technical side of what we are doing, and another person with experience in clinical trial. So you need to figure out what are different aspects of your business and bring people with expertise in those aspects or those required field that will help you to be successful in your business. That was the last question.
Thanks again. Thank you, Dr. Iman. It was honestly, it was an excellent talk. I also learned a lot from this talk, and I would like to thank you once again to generously accept the invitation for giving a talk that I believe will motivate a number of students, and it will encourage the startup culture. I believe you students might have learned about the importance of good organization, how to generate money, maintain a balance in relationship, having a legal entity, and pyramid of successful startup. With that, thanks again. I would also like to thank Dr. CEO ICE team and IISER Bhopal to organize and be part of this wonderful event. I would also like to thank ICE Innovation Club and all the participants. Without participants, no event can be successful, and I really want to thank all the participants, and all of you were very good. Thanks again. And I guess it's time to take another break for this Entrepreneurship Talk series, and hopefully we will see you again in this series of future events. And once again, if you want to, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can like the talk, and if you have missed the previous talks, and you can always go to the ICE channel and you can look at the previous talks. Thank you guys. Thanks again.
Thank you.